Disney has been in a bad place for a very long time, and even though they've tried to say that they're going to change and that they're going to focus on quality over quantity going forward, we still haven't seen that business plan put into action. But now we're hearing that Marvel has reportedly canned movies like Ant-Man 4, Captain Marvel 3, and Eternals 2 because Bob Iger was said to have personally shut them down, thinking that they would be guaranteed bombs. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. Now, I have said for a very long time that Disney has not been in the best of places. They've been losing so much money. I mean, just in 2023 alone, they lost over $1 billion. At the box office, they have had some major flops, and of course, people like Bob Iger have tried to say that their business strategy is going to change, that they're really going to try to listen to fans again and focus on quality over quantity, but unfortunately they have said that for years at this point and things haven't changed. But now we're hearing, this is a Bounding Into Comics article, that movies are being shut down left and right. It says in service of their previously declared efforts to scale back their output and focus on quality over quantity, Marvel Studios has reportedly dropped their plans for Ant-Man 4, Captain Marvel 3, and Eternals 2, with the last film personally brought to a halt by Bob Iger out of fear that, like its predecessor, it would be an absolute box office bomb. And I even recently had to talk about how there have been a lot of shakeups in the live action division. Of course, Sean Bailey, who previously was the president of Walt Disney Picture Studios live action division, had ended up not necessarily leaving, just being put as an executive producer on a bunch of projects, but it's not like they got rid of the position in totality because they did put somebody else into it and they combined two different positions. But we're hearing that movies like the live-action Bambi have been reportedly canceled because so many live-action movies recently have ended up losing them a lot of money. Of course, they have Snow White, which has to come out, which apparently the budget has ballooned to over $300 million. Estimates are even that it's going to end up around $350, which is insane. Little Mermaid barely started, that over that double the budget line. It didn't even make a profit because of course movies need to make the budget and then a certain percentage on top of it. And then we've had lots of failures like Cruella and of course Mulan, which did not do what they wanted. And now it seems like Marvel is going to be facing the brunt of the cancellations. It says in a post to his personal Patreon account, as detailed by numerous outlets, including Dexerto Screen Time, the Marvel-centric Twitter news outlet Cosmic Marvel and Forbes reported that the decision to scrap the aforementioned trio of future MCU outings has been made as part of a turn by the studio away from risky projects and more towards surefire successes. Now, of course, there are certain characters and certain storylines that they could use that would be guaranteed successes using characters maybe that they've already gotten rid of. We've heard, of course, they want to potentially bring Robert Downey Jr. back as Iron Man, even though we have no clue how specifically that would work. But since they're doing lots of, multiverse timelines, they could probably end up doing it. There's also characters like Thor, which are still in their arsenal, and they've apparently thought about bringing Chris Evans' Captain America back, but even if they did, they still have other hurdles that they're facing. Of course, over the past few years, we have seen some major problems with Disney, and of course, that means, with Marvel and Star Wars, Lucasfilm, where they have been putting the narratives first instead of having genuinely good storytelling and using really good characters. They have been focused on, political agendas, and that is something that has definitely pushed a lot of fans away. And with, projects like Captain Marvel, you can see clear as day that throughout Captain Marvel 1 and Captain Marvel 2/The Marvels, the message was women can be strong too. And we already know that. We don't need movies to tell us that. You simply need to have good storylines that have strong female characters, or in the case of, Falcon and Winter Soldier, good black characters. Nobody had a problem with Falcon before he, of course, picked up the Captain America mantle. People didn't want them to go in that direction, but of course, then you had that show, which was filled to the brim with environmentalism messages and capitalism messaging, and it just was not good. And so we're seeing them actually come to realize finally that they are losing a lot of money, and that is not going to change. It's not just one or two projects where they were a little bit off and they didn't quite understand what consumers wanted. We are talking years of projects, years of content that have pushed people away. And even if they were to magically change around the MCU, I don't know if they can ever get back to the point of the Infinity War saga where they have people selling out theaters for release weekend and people being so excited and so hyped. Like, I just don't know if they could reach that success again. Of course, they could try, and there are a lot of things that I could sit here and list off, like bringing back some of those good actors that would help them along, but I think that they seriously are absolutely fucked. This is not a grift. It's not a joke. I know a lot of people on social media talk all the time about how bad things are looking for Disney, but at this point, I genuinely think that the MCU basically needs to be scrapped, and Disney as a company is completely screwed. Of course, this was an article from the end of 2023, but the 4 flops of 2023 that cost Disney over $1 billion. I mean, they have been losing massive amounts of money at the box office. And then, of course, when we get to, Disney Plus, it's the same thing. Amid Disney's continued efforts to slash $5.5 billion in total costs, streaming losses came in at $512 million compared to a loss of $1.1 billion in the prior year period, and significantly ahead of estimates of a loss of $777 million. The company reported a streaming loss of $659 million in quarter 2 and $1.1 billion loss in quarter 1. So, of course, their estimates are actually a little bit better, but that does not mean that they are in a good position. They are in dire straits at this point, and this is what happens when you go years and years of creating content that people do not want, years and years of pushing a message before genuinely good entertainment. People watch these movies for escapism, to be entertained, and that is just not what they have been doing over the past few years. And then we have something like Eternals, which was a desperate attempt at another Avengers. They've tried it so many times more recently with the Marvels. They were we know that they're doing the Young Avengers, but they tried Eternals with a brand new cast of characters that fit all of their, of course, diversity check boxes. And it was supposed to end up being this massive event in the future, almost, of the MCU, and it just ended up not working out the way that they anticipated. It was poorly written, poorly directed. A lot of the actors were not particularly great in their roles either, and overall Eternals was a failure, and all of the movies that came before, like Ant-Man 3, The Marvels, Eternals #1, were all pretty big bombs for them, or at least just did not hit the numbers that they were expecting. So it's not really surprising to hear that now apparently they're actually thinking about what is going to do good and what is not, because they are losing so much money. And it will be interesting to see if they decide to double down, because they always could. We could be hearing these reports right now that none of these are going to go forward and that they're canning all these films, and then they could end up just barreling through and creating them. We don't actually know, since these are just reports, so of course take them with a grain of salt, but it would not surprise me if this was their future direction. It will be interesting to see what content they decide to put out in the future and how many projects are going to be actually releasing over the next couple of years, but only time will tell. That's all that I had to discuss in this video, though. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.